Hello, everyone, and welcome to Junkwrens Halloween Holiday Scarathon. This week we're reviewing Pet Sematary 2. Now, any views expressed within this review are mine and mine alone, and are protected under the Bill of Rights. Got that, Paramount? My views of the movie, of the studio that made the movie, of any of the acting, anything like that, that is my opinion. I'm just saying that right now to get that out of the way. Well, Pet Sematary 2 is the 1992 film sequel to the 1989 film Pet Sematary. Pet Sematary 2 was not based off of Stephen King book, and it shows it from the opening. The cast is as follows: Edward Furlong as plays Jeff Matthews. He also played John Connor in Terminator 2: Judgment Day. Anthony Edwards plays Chase Matthews. Clancy Brown plays Gus Gilbert. Jared Rushton, Clyde Parker. Jason McGuire as Drew Gilbert. Darlene Flugel as Renee Hallow and Renee Matthews. Lisa Waltz as Amanda Gilbert. And Sarah Trigger as Marjorie Hargrove. Mary Lambert returns as director. Now, the film studio who made this film, Poop Mount, a certain nerd has the Rainbow of Death. Well, I have the Mountain of Dung that I'm going to have to scale in dealing with this movie. I really don't want to do this, but since I've already done the review of Pet Sematary 1, however horrible that was, might as well go ahead with the sequel. The opening scene really isn't scary at all. Nothing like the first one. It's very different from the first. Considering that it's a sequel, we'll be looking at this in comparison to the first one, to the first film. The first movie's opening was completely unnerving. It was creepy as all get out. It was scary with, well, you already saw the other review, but with the kids singing and the music playing, and it just showed all that. Well, this one, not so much. With this one opens up with them shooting a film, a horror movie, a cheesy horror movie. I bet it'd be anything better than I bet that movie that was being filmed within this movie would have been better than it. Anyway, the cheesy opening to this shows Renee, Jeff's mom. She dies on set from an accident, and then it cuts to her funeral, where we see Jeff, Renee's son, crying at the funeral. Then he and his dad have moved to the chaos capital of the world, Maine, where Jeff's dad, Chase, he's taking up work as the town veterinarian. And he gets a hold of the local animal hospital and reopens it. And in a scene that tries to be scary, Jeff's walking down a hall in the animal hospital, and he gets scared by a noise. And is it a ghost? Is it some demon animal? No, it is a cat. A cat with kittens. Yeah. There's no ghost or anything warning him not to go beyond. A cat jumps out. It goes for that jump tactic. I mean, you're going into the movie expecting to be scared, and it's not scary. It just makes you jump a little bit. Anyway, the town sheriff, Gus, who's the ex-boyfriend of Renee, when they were in high school, and there's really a lot of tension between Chase and Gus. But anyway, Gus and his stepson, Drew bring their dog in to be seen because it got into a fight with rabbits. Now that seemed weird to me, but we eventually find out later some horrible things about Gus. Anyway, Jeff sneaks his new kitten into school and it is found out by the group of school bullies. And they steal the cat and make off with it on the bike. And in an homage to the first movie and sort of trying to play off the first movie's scare factor, they go right past the Creed house. It even has it written on the mailbox, Creed, C-R-E-E-D. They ride past it. But it is here where Jeff and the bullies get into a fight, and Jeff finds out about the Creed murders and how there is a place where the dead can come back. After getting beat up, Jeff goes to the pet cemetery which is still spooky. Yeah, even in this movie it's spooky. But it's just spooky. It's not completely unnerving like it was in the first. It's just spooky. It's like something out of a poorly designed haunted house. No offense to country bumpkins out there, but it's something like a country bumpkin would set up. It's not completely unnerving. It's not scary really at all. It's just kind of spooky. It's lost the aura that it had from the first film, and I guess it's because that this movie didn't start off nearly as scary as the first one. The first one sets you up to be scared. It reminds me of this play that we had a few years back of Dracula down at the local theater. They had a play of Dracula, and you went in there, and they had it dark. They had creepy music playing, and the set was just really, really good. And just everything about it set you up to be scared. They did great with that. This movie just sucked on the scare factor. The first movie had a scare factor of at least 9 out of 10, if not 10 out of 10. This one ranks like a 2. A 2. Well, anyway, one of the grave markers, I mean, the grave markers still thrown together out of random junk. And one of the grave markers has the Star of David on it. That I noticed that. It had the Star of David. And it's ironic that the film studio that owns this film, the film studio who must not be named, is owned. And this film studio is actually one of the greediest studios out there from what I can tell by my own opinion. And the guy who owns it, who owns the company that owns the film studio, rather, is of a certain descent that involves the Star of David. Yeah, I'm going to let you draw your own inferences from that. I'm going to let you draw your own insinuations from it. I'm not saying that it is this. I'm just saying that it is very, very ironic that this guy owns the company, that owns the film studio, that owns the movie, and the movie has this particular symbol in it. Anyway, Jeff finds his cat stuffed in a bird cage at the cemetery, and Drew comes up, who was with the bullies, and he comes up and apologizes, and we find out that he wishes his stepdaddy actually was dead. Of course, then we find Gus staring at his rabbits. The rabbits are mating, and he's staring at them in a creepy manner with this really weird smile. I mean, it's not really scary. It's just the sort of smile that a sexual deviant has while staring at anything mating. And Of course, this guy has some serious issues. He has some very, very serious issues. He and his stepson don't get along. And then the next time we see him, the dog actually tried to. Drew's dog, Zowie, tries to. At first I thought it was Zoe. I had a dog named Zoe, but no, this one is Zowie, different. Drew's dog, Zowie, excuse me, tries to jump and break into the rabbit cage, and so Gus gets mad and shoots the dog. Drew holds his dog while the dog dies. And that is probably the most disturbing scene of the entire movie. Probably it is probably the most disturbing scene of the entire movie because there are people out there that are abusive to animals. That is horrible. There are sick, psychopathic, sociopathic people that do these kind of things to animals. I could make a very, very bad reference, a bad joke, but I'm not going to on that because that's actually a real thing. Seriously, if you know someone abusing animals, then, I mean, really abusing them. I'm not talking about that they stay outside and they have food, water, shelter, and they're taken care of. They're fat, they're happy. If they're sick, they go taken to the vet. I'm talking about, because there are outside dogs and there are inside dogs. Two different types of dogs. If there's an outside dog and the people have him outside, that's not abuse. I'm talking about people beating on their animals. I mean beating them, not discipline. I mean beating. There are people out there that do that, and if you know of any, you need to report them. Their animals need to be taken away from them. Anyway, that's a real thing. That's my PSA, my moral PSA. But I need to get back to the review because that is what we are trying to handle. Of course, they take Zowie to the pet cemetery to bury him, and Drew says he knows of a better place. Now, we all know what better place he's talking about. He's told to bring his dog back. That's what he's going to try and do. Of course, what do we get? Do we get some ghost coming back and saying, no, don't go beyond. No matter how much you feel you have to, yada, yada. Don't go beyond. The ground's gone bad. No, we don't get any of that. We get a sign that says keep out. A sign that says keep out. That's it. That's it. Yeah. I mean, this movie. I mean, the first movie had you at the edge of your seat, scared, not knowing what's going to happen next. This movie has me at the edge of my seat, or had me at the edge of my seat as I watched it, while taking these notes to review. And I think actually my butt hurting from the chair had me more at the edge of my seat than this movie. Anyway, they go and they bury the dog, and as they leave the grounds, that's when we get the first aerial shot of the burial ground, the Indian burial ground, the Micmac burial ground, and it's different in this movie. It's different. Who changed it? The first one had some weird design on it, and this one still has a weird design on it, but it is different than the first movie. Did Wendigo come up in there and start moving mess around? Or was it the stagehands? I don't know. This movie doesn't make any sense at all. Anyway, of course, this one, when you look at it, in the first movie, the ground was like green with stones around it. This one just looks like a slab of rock. It looks stonier, like a man's heart. You get it? Yeah, neither do I. I don't get it either. Mm-mm. Anyway, Zoe comes back to life, gets the glowing demon dog eyes, same as the cat church in the first movie. And that night, Jeff winds up having a dream about his mother, and his mother gets Zowie's head. I mean, and it's like ferocious and whatnot. Of course, they take Zowie eventually to the vet where because the wound hadn't gotten any better. And when Jeff's dad, who is the vet, checks for a heartbeat, he doesn't get anything. He has no heartbeat. Nope. No heartbeat at all. Of course, earlier in the film, when Zowie first comes back, Gus, being the horrible step-parent that he is, I mean, he shot the dog. The dog has a big gaping wound in its side, and he grounds Drew for lying when Drew said he had gone to bury his dog. Now, let me say this. Drew's mom, she acts out of her mind. She acts like this dude, Gus, can do no wrong or something. Or she tries to act like this subservient little housewife sort of thing. And granted, a man's wife does need to love, honor, and obey him like the man needs to love, honor, and cherish. But, I mean, this guy, he's abusive. That you love, honor, and obey, essentially, as part of your vows. But he also has a vow to love, honor, and cherish. If he doesn't love, honor, and cherish, then you have a right to step up and say, nope, it's going to be this other way. I'm going to get on to another moral PSA, people. PSA. PSA. Anyway. Gus grounded Drew for lying, and this is right before Halloween, and his mom decides to let him out of the house, let Drew out of the house on Halloween. And this causes when that he comes angry when that he comes home and finds Drew gone. We find Drew and Jeff at the pet cemetery, gathered around, incidentally, with the school bully and some other classmates. And, yeah, they're sitting around telling ghost stories. And incidentally, Clyde, who is the bully, is telling about the Creed murders. Of course, thing is, Gus finds them. And this is where things start to get kind of weird, but also kind of good. Gus finds him. He goes up, he grabs Drew, punches him, and then picks up a grave marker to beat him with it. I wish someone would pick up a grave marker and beat me for even watching this movie. I'll be glad when I get done with this. But anyway, I know I've said anyway a whole lot. That's my mannerism that I have got to work on. But we finally get to a good scene. Zowie comes to the rescue just as Gus is about to just beat the living snot out of his stepson with a grave marker. Zowie comes up and attacks Gus. And all this time, this dude, this whole time, this dude, you just said you wish that your stepdaddy was dead. Your stepdaddy is about to beat the living snot out of you. And I make that point. He's about to beat his son with a grave marker. A wooden grave marker. And, well, his stepson, rather. And Drew is saying, Zowie, no! Zowie, no! Get off of him! Get off of him! Anyway, Zowie doesn't listen because it's a demon dog. It rips the jugular right out of Gus's... just rips Gus's throat out. And that's the good scene. That's the good scene. This dude who has serious issues. He actually deserved it. He actually deserved what happened to him. That's the best scene in the entire movie, is the demon dog ripping this abusive guy's throat out. Of course, they find that Gus dies from the attack. He dies from it. They find him dead. And rather than report the truth and say, yeah, this dude was an abusive, sociopathic, just horrible, evil person, he tried to beat me with a grave marker and my dog came to my rescue. No. They decide to take him and they bury him in the not the pet cemetery, but the Micmac burial grounds and the Indian burial grounds. This movie could have been over. It could have been over. It could have had a happy ending. Demon dog comes back, rips abusive step parents' throat out. But no, they had to bring him back. They bury him, he comes back, and he proceeds to rape his wife. Yes, a dead man raped his wife. I don't know of any other time that I can make a statement like that. A dead man raped his wife. Of course, Chase finds out that Zowie, that Zowie is in fact dead. He sends off a blood sample and it comes back and the cells have deteriorated. And then when he goes back to the kennel where they have Zowie, he finds that Zowie is busted out. He's broken free and killed the kittens that he was trying to give away, incidentally. Of course, Chase warns Jeff and Drew about Zowie and to call him if Zowie somehow finds his way back home. Of course, that night, while dreaming of his wife in a very, very sensual dream, Zowie attacks Chase, having become feral. Yeah, demon dog. Just like the cat from the first movie, the dog has come back crazed and violent. Let's just be glad that the dog isn't staring at Chase while he's in the shower. But Gus also has started acting more barbarous and violent and zombie-like. And so the boys, next scene that we find them, they're sitting by a river speculating on how do you come back? It's like if you are good and you come back bad, if you're bad, do you come back good? And they're wondering this because Gus, for a while there after he came back, he was acting pretty normal. He was acting normal before he just went flip city on them. I have that song from Ghostbusters 2 running through my head. I had the OST to Ghostbusters 2 that I was listening to. Anyway. And of course now we know. We know that if you're good in life and you get buried in the Indian burial grounds, you come back bad. If you're bad when you die and you're buried there, you don't come back good. You just stay bad. You just stay bad. You actually come back worse because these are actually murderers. Anyway, Clyde comes up as the boys are riding off on their bikes. Clyde comes up on his dirt bike and he knocks Jeff over and he's trying to take off Jeff's nose with Jeff's bicycle. Well, Gus comes in and saves the day somewhat and kills Clyde. Drew catches him, killing Clyde, and tries to make a run for it on his bike, and Gus gives chase. He gives pursuit. Drew gets home, gets a gun, but Gus beat him home and unloaded the gun. These are intelligent zombies, obviously. Of course, Drew escapes from the house and gets into with his mom, or with his mom when she pulls up, and Gus comes out. He tries to bust out a window, and Drew and his mom take off. Gus gives pursuit in the police car. He follows him in the police car, and he has just gone psycho at this point. He runs them. He runs them into the other lane and causes them to get hit by a car. And at this point, Gus goes up to the corpse of Clyde and says, "Well, Clyde, buddy, I'm going to take you up the mountain just like the Indians did." He's going to bury Clyde so Clyde comes back. All the while, Jeff, this kid plays roles with some serious parental issues. He played John Connor in Terminator 2, who has issues with his mama. And then he plays Jeff in this movie that also has issues with his mama. He is obsessed with the burial ground's power. He buries his mom there. He goes to the cemetery, digs up his mom, buries her to bring her back. Of course, I'm not going to spoil the ending for you, just like the first one. I'm not going to spoil the ending for you. Trust me, it's just as bad as the rest of the movie. This one ends with the saying, "Dead is better." And trust me, that is true. It would be better to be dead than to have to suffer through another Pet Sematary movie of this caliber. The first film was great. It was nigh perfect. It was nearly perfect. It was truly horrifying. The second, not so much. The acting in this one was mediocre at best. The best role that was played was the best role. The best acting was done, I actually have to say, by Zowie, the dog. The graphics were okay for a 90s movie. Not the best and not the worst. I mean, I have seen worse and I have seen better. One thing that's really, really disappointing about Pet Sematary 2 is that it doesn't do anything to go into the lore of them Indian burial grounds. There's nothing that goes into the lore of it, nothing that goes to the background. It doesn't explain how it went sour. It's very repetitive. The first movie already established the fact that if you die and you get buried there, you come back crazed, violent, murdering folks. And this one just repeats that. It just repeats it. There's nothing new about the movie. There's nothing fresh about the movie. And one of the most disappointing things is the first movie had heart. It had a theme. It had a certain life to it that still rings true to this day. The theme of being willing to let go and not go beyond what that we should, or what we ought, rather. I keep saying should, but rather than what we ought. The message of the first one was to be willing to mourn the dead, but be willing to let go. And it's very pronounced in the first movie. It carries weight. That movie had heart. This movie has no heart. It has no heartbeat. It has no theme. It has no message. It's just somebody dies, bury them in the ground, let them come back and wreak havoc. Let them run wild. The first movie had a certain, like I said, life to it. This one It's just like examining Zowie, the vet examining Zowie. The wound's not healing. There's no heartbeat and the cells are deteriorating. This movie, it paid homage to the first one. It paid tribute to the first one, especially in certain scenes and in references. But it failed to live up to its predecessor's standard. That is my review and my views and my opinion of Pet Sematary 2. May the next horror movie that Junkwrens reviews be better. Better than Dead. Because if it's as bad, then Dead would be better.